we just went through about 1,000 angry tweets about the Edmonton Oilers, who have won 3 times in their last 11. And for whatever reason, last night was the night where a lot of people just snapped, including beat writers, including people that cover that team on our network, including people that write for papers. What are you seeing and hearing around this Oilers club, who have been the worst team in the NHL over the last little bit, while we've seen these other playoff contenders like Florida, Dallas, Colorado crank up their game?
Well, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing remarkably is a lack of speed when I watch the Oilers play. And, that's Connor McDavid excluded, of course. But, then, I heard you guys coming into the segment here. You look at the players who are no longer there, right? You look at Ryan McLeod, the guy can skate. Holloway, kid can flat out skate. Warren Foegele, I had no problem with Foegele. He's a bigger body, but he can move up and down the ice. Cody Ceci, probably played some of his best hockey on the blue line of the Edmonton Oilers. Now you watch him play in Dallas. He's a pretty good piece. He's a real good piece for the Dallas Stars. Just the collection of players that aren't playing in Edmonton, a lot of that is related to the salary cap issue, of course. And, they got poached by the St. Louis Blues via the offer sheet. So I can appreciate all of that. I do. But then you have to do the math, and the math sees what you brought in. And now you've got Victor Arvidsson, who I thought he was better than this. I thought he'd be a real good ad. He's a hard worker, all of those things. I thought it'd be a compliment, and it just doesn't seem to be working out for him with the Oil. Jeff Skinner, I think we knew what to expect there. You'd get a pop of offense here or there. Defensively, with all due respect, I think he's been porous or a liability most of his career, right? So the writing was on the wall there. But and for a team that is right up against that salary cap, you just can't miss. You can't take, especially when you're letting good pieces go out the door that in some respects were homegrown within the organization, and you knew. So that's kind of what I'm seeing, and that's a tough fix. So they bring in Wallman, an effective defenseman, not a bad player, not a bad piece, right? And Trent Frederick, well, he's a good player too, but he's not healthy. And when he gets healthy, sure, he's going to help. But that's all of what we're seeing now. The true indictment, though, frankly, fellas, comes from within. And I'm not going to identify who's saying this. It's like they're playing lifeless hockey right now. And maybe that's excusable when you're coming out of a Game 7 Stanley Cup final loss, devastated, and a summer of healing has just scabbed it over, but really hasn't healed, right? So you go through the doldrums early in the year. Man, we're at the end here. We're in the final push of the regular season, and they're dealing with this stuff. So I hate the reality is obvious. If the fix is there, it's internal or it's not. And if it's not, then Stan Mulman's got a big problem.
Rhett, you tell us what you're seeing with Bouchard, and we'll get Dregs to react to that. Because when he says lifeless, like Bouchard's the poster boy.
And that's what I'm wondering, if the guys are sitting on the bench watching a guy that's supposed to be I don't know if he's a Norris Trophy, but he's supposed to be a top guy. And he's supposed to be better, and he's good. He's a focal point on that decor at minimum. And I'm sorry, there's no heartbeat. Like I said it earlier. I don't watch the Oilers religiously. It's not I don't follow them with passion like a lot of people do. But I don't have to see that he doesn't compete in areas where wins and losses add up. Right? Like it's pretty flat. I think it has to be infectious in that room, and infectious might be the wrong word, but
contagious.
Contagious is the word. Yes.
What are you seeing with Bouchard specifically, Dregs?
Yeah, a lot of what Rhett just said, and we used to reference the Bouch bomb, right? And that was that slapper from the point, and normally it was on the power play. Well, now the Bouch bomb is not that anymore. It's like an ill-timed blunder. We saw it at the start of the week against Buffalo, and you see it too often. And now let's bring it back into the cap era, because normally that's where you have to go when, again, you're talking about trying to change things in the longer term. So they've got Darnell Nurse locked down at a big number, 9+. You know, Bouchard's a little different. He's a restricted free agent, but you know, there's rumblings of big numbers expected from his side of the negotiation. Not that long ago, maybe a year ago, you're sitting there going, okay, this kid's going to get paid, and deservedly so. He's going to get paid. But this year, the body of the work doesn't represent those kind of dollars. And, you know, especially when you've got a decent defenseman in Darnell Nurse, but how can you have all of that money tied up? And then look, I follow social media to a point, but I'm looking at some of, you know, the media, maybe not necessarily locally, but around the league. And I was in fact, I was asked about it this morning on a radio program about Sam Bennett and whether or not he could be a fit. And you saw the reporting out of Edmonton that they kicked tires on Mikko Rantanen with the Carolina Hurricanes before he went to Dallas. Well, how are all those pieces going to fit? I mean, you know, so you land one of those forwards. Well, that tells me what they're going to do with Evan Bouchard. And it's not pay him $10 or $11 million annually.
But
it's
they
move
shouldn't.
him out. That's and based on his play, you're right. I mean, how can you? You can't.
And to defend Bouchard, he's come off back-to-back playoffs where he's been exceptional. He was a 1.5 per game as a blue liner. Rare.
Yeah,
he's still a lot of the metrics like his skill set, but there's just too many plays where he's not trying defensively. Like he's still a top 5 guy on clean zone exits in the entire league. That's one of the best things you can do as a defenseman is come out of your own zone without turning it over. He's having a rough stretch, but I wonder when they add Jake Wallman, a left shot, who I believe has term left on his deal, is that we're done with Bouch and he's going to be our Ekholm left side guy, or am I off base here? Because I think Bouch is a righty, but I don't know. Like I'm trying to.
How do you fix the roster construction? You have to pay McDavid. You have to pay Draisaitl. You want to pay those.
Draisaitl's raise comes in next year at $14 million.
But the rest of it, I think they've fumbled and thought they were closer, and they tried to stop gaps and fill some holes with older guys and let other guys. It doesn't feel like it's Colorado we talked about 20 minutes ago. It feels like they have slotting correct, right? If that's a stupid term we have to use. The Oilers to me is, we got 2 really good players. This guy. Let's get this guy. And it's and oftentimes when they go get those guys, dumb media people like us go, that doesn't seem to be the right. I don't know, right? Like, honestly, when is the last? I mean, Wallman, okay, that's a good trade, and I think Frederick's a good trade. So maybe I'm being over analytical of stuff. But Arvidsson, I thought he'd be better too. But where's that tweet from somebody that had the list of guys that left and the list of guys they brought in? It's not even close, and you can look at it as people that follow hockey and go, "Well, that doesn't make any sense."
No, and then you look at the arms race that is the Western Conference, and you are talking about a team that came, you know, within a whisker, a period or two of hoisting the Stanley Cup in the Stanley Cup final, and yet you look at the Dallas Stars. Undeniably, that is a much better team. They were a better team before Mikko Rantanen, showed up on the scene. I mean, the trade that they made for Granlund and Ceci, I mean, that was crafty work by Jim Nill, because it plugged 2 significant holes. And then you add Rantanen on top of that. And then, you know, to Colorado, I mean, Chris McFarland and Joe Sakic were all over it at the start of the year. Didn't like their goaltending. Didn't think that their goaltending was going to withstand the push throughout the season, let alone get to the playoffs. So what do? They rebuild their goaltending. Not 1 guy, 2 guys. I mean, it's ridiculous. And, you know, I mean, Brock Nelson was available to everyone. You know, Charlie Coyle, a real sneaky ad by the Colorado Avalanche. Sneaky ad, you know, a real important bottom 6, can play in your top 6. You know, certainly was doing that with the Boston Bruins. You know, like, so if Colorado can do that and Dallas can do that, Riley Smith was on the radar of the Edmonton Oilers. I know that. Lee ends up back in Vegas, a team that probably you're going to lock horns with. So you look around the West and you see all the improvements made. And I think the fan base is sitting there going, well, wait a minute. Like, you know, again, Wallman fits into the bigger picture. So it's hard to be over critical of that. But trade deadline is a simple deadline. It's the point of when you can't make trades and bring roster players in after the fact doesn't mean you can't make trades before the deadline.
Right.
You've got all year long to address those issues, and they just didn't do it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.